Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mary Greeley's Primetime Alive presentation, 10 Warning Signs of Alzheimer's. I'm Wendy D'Amato, and I help coordinate the Primetime Alive program. As a reminder, if you'd like more information about Primetime Alive or how to join, please visit our website at mgmc.org/PTA. Our presenter today is Denise Kluver. Denise has been an occupational therapist in Iowa for over 41 years in physical rehabilitation and geriatrics. Denise's special interest is in geriatric dementia, and she provided direct OT service and consulted in many Iowa facilities. Denise was the program director for the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program at Indian Hills Community College in Ottumwa and served as the lab assistant and coordinator for the Occupational Therapy Doctorate Program at Drake University. Denise has personal experience as a caregiver to a family member with dementia. Please welcome Denise.
All right, thank you. So yes, my personal experience with Alzheimer's is that my dad has Alzheimer's and was probably diagnosed, I think, about 7 years ago. So it's been interesting for me, certainly having all that experience on one side of the therapy world and then having the personal experiences with my dad as a caregiver, and also sort of all of those people that you have to coordinate all the care with and all of that that I never had to worry about too much when I was just providing treatment to one person at a time. So welcome to the 10 Warning Signs of Alzheimer's. This education program is presented by the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm in the role of community educator, so it's my pleasure to come and volunteer with Alzheimer's Association and go out and do presentations. This program is designed for those who want to learn more about warning signs of Alzheimer's and other dementias, and those who have noticed memory or thinking changes in themselves or others. You might be here because you are concerned about someone who might be starting to show signs of dementia and you would like to learn more, or maybe you have a personal connection to the disease. These are the learning objectives for today. Describing typical age-related memory, thinking, or behavior changes. Recognize common warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. Discuss the tips for approaching someone about memory concerns. Explain the importance of early detection and benefits of diagnosis. Identify possible tests and assessments for the diagnostic process. Name the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association. So those of you who joined us last time, there's some things that we'll review because it's always good to review some of them because it's easy to forget when you've only heard them one time. So throughout today's presentation, we will periodically check in with the Garcias. This is a fictitious family, following along as Mary's daughters discuss their mother's memory changes and take action to find the cause. Please note that the Garcias' experience might be common, but it does not represent the exact experience for everyone, as situations vary from person to person. Mary, a 73-year-old widow, lives alone. She's a retired teacher who has always meticulously cared for her home. Her daughter Lydia has recently been noticing laundry pile up and junk mail and old newspapers lying around the house. Lydia is the eldest of Mary's 2 daughters. She lives just a few miles away and visits her mother frequently. Patricia lives in another state. She works long hours and isn't able to visit her mother as often as she'd like. She communicates with Mary and Lydia frequently via the phone and text messaging. Lydia is concerned about her mother's noticeable lack of tidiness and that she is constantly losing things, and she reaches out to her sister. I want to point out that although this is a fictional scenario, Dr. Stephen Salloway is in fact a real MD who has been recognized as the leading expert in aging, Alzheimer's disease, and other memory disorders.
As we get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody, and it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names, and they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, or what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. And then they start misplacing things. But not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
We're all here today to learn more about dementia and Alzheimer's and identify common warning signs of the disease. You may have heard the terms dementia and Alzheimer's used interchangeably. And like we talked about last time, while they are related, there are significant differences between the two. This list is intended to be a tool to identify unusual changes in a person's memory, thinking, or behavior. It's important to note that this list does not constitute a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. These are simply the most common examples of changes experienced. So let's click on these.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow and the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things, but when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with a doctor, to find out what you're dealing with.
This list is intended to be a tool to identify unusual changes in a person's memory, thinking, or behavior. It's important to note that this list does not constitute a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia. These are simply the most common examples of changes experienced. All right, the first one, memory loss that disrupts daily life. So what are the possible signs of dementia? So most common signs of Alzheimer's is forgetting recently learned information, but others include forgetting important dates or events, asking the same questions over and over, and increasingly relying on memory aids, reminder notes, or family members for tasks formerly managed with ease. That's one thing that my dad has more and more trouble with. He used to be able to look at the calendar and know the date. He knew his birth date when we went to the doctor, those kinds of things. And those things are getting harder for him to be able to relate to. What's a typical age-related change? Sometimes forgetting names or appointments, but remembering them later. Happens to me all the time. I'm going to go back here just a second. Challenges in planning or solving problems. Some people experience changes in their ability to develop and follow a plan or work with numbers, which may result in trouble following a familiar recipe or keeping track of monthly bills. Difficulty concentrating and taking much longer to complete tasks.
I was probably spending 4 to 5 times more time preparing for something than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago, because of I would lose my thought, I'd lose my focus, I'd get anxious, I wouldn't get to sleep. I was thinking, I was in my sleep, I was thinking about what I was anxious about, which was I was trying to remember, which was I was trying to prepare, which I was trying to do. So it was really a vicious circle. So I was able to control it a lot, so that people wouldn't see things, and there weren't things to be seen. It's what was disturbing me was what effort I had to put into to do the things I used to do more easily.
Difficulty completing familiar tasks, such as driving to a familiar location, organizing a grocery list, remembering the rules of a favorite game. So these are things that, kind of is rote memory, remembering how to get to the grocery store or remember to write things on a list. And those things get increasingly difficult as possible sign of dementia. Occasionally needing help to use the settings on a microwave or to record a television show would be examples of typical age-related changes.
Some people have difficulty with math or with reading in a way that's unusual to them. And once again, this is a change in that person. So for example, we all know somebody who was never able to balance their checkbook, right? So that wouldn't be a warning sign for them. But if somebody who always balanced their checkbook to the penny suddenly was paying bills, the same bill over and over, and not able to balance their finances, well, that would be a sign for them.
Another warning sign, confusion with time or place. People living with Alzheimer's or other dementias can lose track of dates, seasons, and passage of time. They may have trouble understanding something if it's not happening immediately. Or another sign might be they forget where they are and how they got there. Now, typical age-related change is getting confused about the day of the week but figuring it out later. Another warning sign, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. For some people, having vision problems is a sign of dementia, which may lead to difficulty with balance, I've worked with a lot of people that had trouble with stairways as the first thing because they couldn't tell where the steps started and ended. Trouble with reading. Trouble judging distance and determining color or contrast, which may cause issues with driving. And certainly as an occupational therapist, I did have some clients that had difficulty and getting their car in the garage, or going down the street and getting too far over and hitting a mailbox on the side of the road because they couldn't judge that distance very well. Now, a typical age-related change would be something that's related to cataracts, where you look, I know I've had cataracts, and when you look and it's a little blurry and you think you saw what it said, and then you look at it again and it's something a little bit different than what you thought.
Alzheimer's disease is not just a disease of memory. It can affect other things too. It can affect the way that we perceive what we see. So sometimes somebody in the early stages of Alzheimer's might go to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing, and in fact, their vision is just fine, but the way they're perceiving what they're seeing may be difficult.
Another warning sign of Alzheimer's, new problems with words in speaking or writing. Possible signs of dementia might be that the person stops in the middle of a conversation and have no idea how to continue. They repeat themselves. They struggle with vocabulary or have trouble naming a familiar object or use the wrong name. This is where my dad is right now, and so sometimes he starts to tell me a story, and he stops, and he looks at me, and he goes, and so then it's kind of a guessing game to try to figure out what he wants me to, what he's trying to talk about. And sometimes it's having trouble just finding the right word, but it might come to you in a few minutes, and that's a typical age-related change.
The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
Another warning sign of Alzheimer's is misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps. So this might look like a person living with Alzheimer's may put things in unusual places. He or she may lose things and be unable to go back over their steps to find them, or accuse others of stealing, which may occur more frequently over time. I've seen this a lot over my practice because people will accidentally put their car keys in the refrigerator or someplace that you would never even think about they possibly could be. Typical age-related change is misplacing things from time to time and retracing steps to find them. Like I'm always looking for my glasses or my car keys.
So some people wonder if they lose their keys or their glasses or their purse, is that a sign of Alzheimer's? And one thing that I would say about that is for most of us, we might misplace something, but then if we retrace our steps, we can usually find it. We can usually remember. For a person with Alzheimer's, sometimes they're not able to retrace their steps. Sometimes that memory is just gone. And so when they do find their keys next to the phone because they got interrupted by a phone call when they were coming in, they set their keys down in an unusual space. So there they are next to the phone. If that happened to you or me, we'd probably remember, oh yeah, the phone was ringing when I came in the door. I put down my keys. The person with Alzheimer's might not remember. They might wonder who's moving their keys around because they never put their keys by the phone. So that's just a little bit of a difference in some of the dynamics with losing things in Alzheimer's.
Another warning sign of Alzheimer's is decreased or poor judgment. People living with Alzheimer's may experience changes in judgment or decision-making. They may use poor judgment in dealing with money. And maybe spending a lot of money making purchases over the TV is an example I can think of. Paying less attention to grooming or keeping themselves clean. A typical age-related change would be making a bad decision or a mistake once in a while, like forgetting that you needed to change the oil in your car, as an example.
The way I kept my house, I wouldn't say I was OCD, but pretty close to it. And all of a sudden, everything was okay with me. It's like, oh, it's a pile, I'm tired. So my dining room table usually looked like it was someone's office, because I always would say I would do it tomorrow. And then my bedroom, as far as clothing, I would just put it in a corner, put it in a chair. And all of this is just, I wouldn't say it looked like I was a pet wreck, but really I was, because I never threw anything away. I always would say, I'll get to it, but I never did get to it. So just the way of my standard of living, it was actually decreasing.
Another warning sign of Alzheimer's, withdrawal from work or social activities. A person living with dementia may experience changes in the ability to hold or follow a conversation. As a result, he or she may withdraw from hobbies, social activities, or other engagements, or they have trouble keeping up with a favorite team or activity. It bothers my dad if there's a lot of conversation, a lot of people in the room, or when we go to the grocery store, something like that. So then he doesn't want to do those things anymore. What's a typical age-related change? Sometimes feeling uninterested in family or social engagements.
One of the most common changes, and early on, is the person's comfort zone shrinks a little bit, and then that gets worse throughout the course of the illness. So they're less comfortable going out, they're less motivated to do things than they were in the past. So there's some change in day-to-day functioning that way. I think people also lose confidence in their cognitive abilities, because they may not recognize someone or know their name or find the right word, and they'll feel awkward, and they don't want people to notice that, so they feel more comfortable at home or in situations with family where they're very, very comfortable with that wouldn't concern them. So people tend to withdraw a little bit and be less outgoing. That's can be one of the early signs of Alzheimer's.
And the last one, changes in mood and personality. People living with dementia may experience mood and personality changes, such as becoming confused, suspicious, depressed, fearful, or anxious. Getting easily upset at home with friends or when out of their comfort zone. A typical age-related change would be developing a very specific way of doing things, and you kind of become a little irritated when the routine is disrupted.
Another early sign of Alzheimer's or dementia is subtle changes in behavior. So all of a sudden, the family may notice the person is more easily irritated, or more impatient, or a little moody, or have a shorter fuse, or more anxious. Now, there's lots of things that can cause that, but often that can be an early symptom of Alzheimer's or go along with the early symptoms of memory loss.
As we talked earlier, Mary's daughters are concerned about the changes they're observing in their mom. They want to know when it's time to see a doctor about changes that they have witnessed. These 10 signs are a guide to identify problems that may be related to Alzheimer's. Individuals may experience one or multiple warning signs in varying degrees, but they don't have to experience them all for there to be a concern. If you notice any of these changes in yourself or someone else, it's important to see the doctor. The importance of early detection. We talked about that a little bit last time. Usually friends and family are often the first to notice changes.
You know, it's a very interesting phenomena that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, you know, paying attention. If they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot, and the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it, and they say, you know, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
And what should you do if you notice changes in someone? And there are 10 steps to approach memory concerns. Assess the situation. What changes in memory or thinking or behavior do you see? What else is going on? Various conditions can cause changes in memory, thinking, and behavior. Are there other health or lifestyle issues that could be contributing to these changes, such as stress, diabetes, or a change in medication? Learn about the signs and the benefits of early diagnosis. You've already taken the very important first step by joining us for this program to learn about these topics. Has anyone else noticed the changes? Talk with friends and family. What, if any changes have they noticed? Prepare to have a conversation. Who should be the one to discuss concerns with this person? It could be you, it could be a trusted family member or a friend, or a combination. It's usually best to speak one-on-one so that that person doesn't feel threatened or ambushed, but use what you know about the person to judge what approach might be best. What is the best time and place to have the conversation? Whoops. What will you or the person having the conversation say? You might want to script it out. Sometimes my brother, who lives in Cedar Rapids, and I talk before we go to see Dad so that we are saying the same thing, and we have somewhat of a script. And it can be something like, I've noticed a change in you, and I'm concerned. Have you noticed this? Are you worried? How have you been feeling lately? You don't really seem like yourself. I notice you are having more trouble with an activity. I think the first thing we noticed was he just had a hard time. He was really a really handy guy with tools, and he was having a hard time figuring out how to put some things together. And has anything else like that happened? Offer to go with the person to the doctor. Ask the person to see a doctor and offer to accompany them. Try using encouraging words such as, there are lots of things that could be causing this. Let's see if the doctor can help us figure out what's going on. The sooner we know what's causing these problems, the sooner we can address it. And I think it will give us both peace of mind if we talk to a doctor. If needed, have multiple conversations. Don't be discouraged if the first conversation is not as successful as you'd hoped. Write down notes about how it went so you can prepare for any future conversations. Don't dismiss the changes you're noticing simply because the person is reluctant to address them or the conversation didn't go as planned. Reach out for support. You can turn to the Alzheimer's Association and call the free 24/7 helpline to talk with master's level clinicians who can provide reliable support and information, including about how to have this important conversation. So the address is alz.org. And the phone number that's answered 24 hours a day is 1-800-272-3900. And finally, see a doctor. Most people address concerns about memory, thinking, or behavior with their primary care physician. However, in some cases, the primary care physician will refer the person to see a specialist for further evaluation. And the specialist can be a gerontologist physician, a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, a psychiatrist, a psychiatrist, there we go. Any of those can help you get started on the right path. Geriatricians have additional training in medical care for diseases and conditions of older adults, generally over age 65. And they're really tuned into resources and things that were available in the community. Neurologists who specialize in diseases of the brain and nervous systems. Neuropsychologists who can assess and diagnose and treat psychological disorders associated with brain-based conditions. Psychiatrists who specialize in disorders that affect mood or the way the mind works, and psychologists with special training in testing memory and other mental functions.
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Also, the treatments that are available for Alzheimer's don't cure Alzheimer's. They don't slow down the disease, but they do help with symptoms. And it seems as though they tend to work better the earlier a person is able to use those. So that can help too. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
So, importance of early detection. Pay attention to any changes you notice in people, especially regarding memory, thinking, or behavior. That's an important for early detection. If you observe any unusual behaviors or occurrences, take action by having a conversation about what you observed. Consider using 10 steps to memory approach memory concerns that we discussed as a guide for this conversation. Customize it so that you are approaching the person in the most supportive way possible. And there are a number of benefits to early detection, such as planning for the future, access to treatments for systems, and participation in the clinical studies. Seeking a diagnosis. Now let's take a look at what may be involved in the medical process to determine the cause of symptoms. There is currently no way to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. We'll go back to it. Thought it was going to pop and tell us. The answer is false. Contrary to an outdated belief that an Alzheimer's diagnosis can only be made at autopsy, there are a number of assessments and tests that make it possible for healthcare professionals to diagnose Alzheimer's and dementia with a high degree of certainty. However, determining the cause of dementia can sometimes be more difficult. And these are the list of assessments. Assessments may include medical history, a physical exam, a screen for depression, interview with a close companion, and tests may include laboratory test, mental cognitive status test, and brain imaging. Mary's daughters are preparing for answers about their mom's changes in behavior. They wonder, do dementia-like symptoms always result in a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other dementia?
Someone could have high blood pressure that's out of control, or they might have a thyroid condition that's not regulated, or diabetes that's not right, or on a medication that actually can cause memory loss. Drinking too much alcohol can make memory worse. So there are a lot of factors that go into cognitive difficulty with aging that some of them can be remedied. And so we want to do everything we can to improve cognitive ability and quality of life.
The diagnostic experience may vary from person to person. Something other than Alzheimer's or another dementia could be causing the symptoms. The stigma, misconceptions about the disease, like believing that nothing can be done, can prevent some people from seeking a diagnosis. So if the diagnosis is Alzheimer's, what's next? Let's see what Mary's daughters do. So communication between the two of them is great, that they can do that. And it's nice that she called and got her voicemail, and she got right back to her. Call her later when I get home, but the diagnosis is early stage Alzheimer's, because that's important, because people are sitting at home worrying what's happening. Oh no, what do we do now? Doc says the Alzheimer's Association offers free resources. Some even help people live well with the disease. We'll call soon, but left office with some hope. The Alzheimer's Association is in communities across the country, providing direct service to individuals and families facing the disease. The mission of the Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. And there's the 800 number at the bottom, and also alzheimers.org.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple of nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did, was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, there I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has this been around, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
And there's another site at the bottom in communities nationwide, and that's how you can find that information as well.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time, or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
The association has, if you call the helpline, they have highly trained, knowledgeable staff who can help with education, decision-making support, crisis assistance, and research identification. And probably the most valuable, and I think I talked about this before last time, in that I have heard several people in support groups talk about something happened in the middle of the night and they just were like, what do I do, what do I do? And it was so helpful to be able to call someone in the middle of the night and actually talk to someone. Ways to join the fight. Whether you can spare a few hours a week or make more significant time commitment, consider volunteering with Alzheimer's Association. Numerous opportunities are available, including becoming a community educator or joining your local walk planning committee. Become an Alzheimer's Association advocate and speak out on behalf of the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. Everyone can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trial. Get started with the Alzheimer's Association Trial Match, a free, easy-to-use clinical studies matching service. The Walk to End Alzheimer's. Form or join a team for Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's and raise critical funds and awareness, held annually in more than 600 communities nationwide. Walk to End Alzheimer's is the world's largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. And that's the website there. And the longest day, the day with the most light, the summer solstice. Raise funds and awareness for the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association through an activity of your choice. And start now, select your activity, and there's the website to the longest day. Okay, that concludes this. I guess if you have any questions, we'll see if somehow those can be addressed later or something like that. So I'll turn it over to someone who knows.
Okay. Thank you, Denise. And thanks for your time in preparing and presenting the program. And yes, since we weren't able to do this live on Teams, if you have any questions that Vicki or I can address to Denise or Megan, please email them to either Vicki or myself, and we will be happy to get some answers for you and get that out to you. So I want to remind everyone of our upcoming Primetime Alive programs. The next one is ISU Wellbeing and Exercise Laboratory, Current Work and COVID Data. That's on Wednesday, September 29th at 2 p.m. And our final program in the three-part Alzheimer's series is Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body, Tips from the Latest Research. And that's on Wednesday, October 13th at 2 p.m. So you can register for those on mgmc.org/PTA. Register for those programs. And also a reminder, you can go on youtube.com and type in Primetime Alive in the search, and you can look at all of our, current and past programs as well. They are uploaded there. Okay, thanks again for joining us today.